Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever been stuck in one of those arguments? You know, the one, you've got all the facts, the evidence is crystal clear, but the other person, they just will not budge? It's so frustrating, right? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind why some people just can't seem to change their minds.
So yeah, this is the big question we're tackling. It's a situation we have all been in, and honestly, it can feel completely bonkers. But as it turns out, there are some really powerful psychological reasons for this. We're about to crack the case on why facts sometimes just don't stand a chance. Okay, let's get into it. The prime suspect in our little investigation today is a concept called cognitive rigidity. This is the big idea, the psychological phenomenon that sits right at the heart of those totally unwinnable arguments. So what is this stuff exactly? Well, to put it simply, cognitive rigidity is when a person's thinking just gets stuck. It's kind of like their mind is running on an old operating system that can't be updated. New information comes in, but the system just can't process it because it doesn't match the old programming. Now, to really understand how this all works, we've got to look for the evidence. So we're going to open up the evidence locker and pull out 3 classic clues, 3 psychological tells, really, that show cognitive rigidity in action. All right, our first piece of evidence is something called black and white thinking. This is the tendency to see everything in extremes. You know, things are either all good or all bad, totally right or completely wrong, a huge success or an absolute disaster. There's just no gray area, which means when you're in an argument, there's no middle ground to be found. And just look at the difference here on this slide. The language is so telling. On the left, you've got these absolute statements, the only way, 100% right. You see how that just slams the door on any real conversation? But on the right, flexible thinking opens things up. It's about exploring, admitting you might not have all the answers. Okay, on to our second clue. This one is all about responsibility, or maybe a lack of it. It's called an external locus of control, and it has everything to do with who someone believes is really in the driver's seat of their life. Basically, what this means is, if you have an external locus of control, you feel like you're not the pilot of your own life. Nope, you're just a passenger along for the ride. Things happen to you. It's the total opposite of an internal locus of control, where you believe your own choices shape your life. And this is a textbook example. See how the blame is all pointed outward? It's the instruction's fault, the team's fault. For someone with a rigid mindset, taking in new information might mean they have to admit they were wrong. And hey, if nothing's ever your fault, why would you ever need to change your mind? All right, our third and final clue is a big one. You've probably heard of it, the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is a fascinating, kind of mind-bending cognitive bias where, get this, being incompetent can actually make you feel more confident. Yeah, it's a real catch-22. The very skills you need to be good at something are often the same skills you need to realize you're not good at it. So if someone is missing those skills, they aren't just bad at the task, they're blind to how bad they are. Wow. Okay, this chart says it all, doesn't it? I mean, just look at that gap. Their actual real ability is way down here, but their perceived ability is through the roof. And think about it. If you genuinely believe you're an expert, why on earth would you listen to someone else's facts or arguments? In your mind, you already know better. So, we've got the clues. Black and white thinking, blaming others, overconfidence. But what's the motive here? Why does our brain fight so hard to be right, even when it's clearly wrong? Well, the answer actually comes down to some pretty simple brain biology. So here's the thing. Your brain, believe it or not, is kind of lazy. It's an energy-saving machine, always looking for shortcuts. And deep, critical thinking, the kind it takes to really change a core belief, is one of the most energy-draining things it can possibly do. Okay, so think about it like this. When new info comes along that challenges something you believe, your brain gets to a fork in the road. It can do the hard work, the heavy lifting of reasoning through the new facts and updating its worldview, or it can take a shortcut. And that shortcut is to just reject the information. It's way faster, it's easier, and it saves a ton of precious mental energy. Okay, so we've seen the evidence, we've figured out the motive, and we understand how this cognitive rigidity is all about mental shortcuts and protecting our own worldview. So, what's the verdict? Let's just boil it down. The key signs we're looking for are seeing the world in absolutes, always blaming outside forces when things go wrong, and a serious overconfidence that just doesn't line up with reality.
You put those three things together, and you've got the perfect recipe for an argument that you are never, ever going to win.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. It is so easy to see these traits in the person we're arguing with, right? But it's a whole lot harder to see them in the mirror. So the real challenge I want to leave you with is this. Where are our own blind spots? Where could a little more flexibility and a little more humility make all the difference in our own thinking?